The man merely cast the most basic devouring spell, yet it left everyone present utterly shocked. Back when I ascended the Tower of Gods, I was unexpectedly recognized by the deities, which made me the most unique spell wielder across the continent. This was a world where gods and demons coexisted. 100 years ago, the gods joined forces to create a colossal mythic tower. Inside the pantheon of all demons at its peak, they imprisoned the demon clan that nearly destroyed the world. Beyond that, human challengers could strengthen themselves by conquering the tower. However, during the Third War of Gods and Demons, the tower was shattered to pieces, and in the end, the beast Arlet seized the opportunity. Arlet, wielding power far beyond the gods, drove away the constellation gods, and all challengers in the tower were about to face certain death. During this war, I unexpectedly reached the 92nd floor of the mythic tower. What I hadn't anticipated was that the pantheon of all demons had also fallen from the top floor to the 92nd. At that moment, the system notified me that I had achieved the feat of being the first to enter the pantheon. With only slight hesitation, I stepped inside the mysterious hall. I needed to find something within it, something that would let me turn time back and change the gods' doomed fate. Guided by my exclusive skill, the Compass of Journey, I soon found the warehouse of Mammon, king of demons. Pushing open the door, I felt like I had entered a chamber made entirely of treasures: the cursed sword of Tarbin, the secret martial arts of the celestial palace of Mammon, an ancient grimoire long forgotten, and the rarest of all, the heart of an elder dragon. Before long, among these treasures, I found exactly what I sought: the hourglass of Kronos, god of time. But the hourglass could not truly reverse space and time. It could only rewind its wielder's personal timeline back into the past. With a resounding crack, I gripped the hourglass tightly, and as blue energy surged within, it shone with a dazzling azure glow. A moment later, I was back at the battlefield where Arlet had just arrived. Though my strength was still leagues beneath his, within the pantheon lay a heap of divine weapons I could wield. I grabbed one at random, a mighty yet agile spear formed from Zeus's lightning, a strape. With only one clash, Arlet was stunned by the godly radiance, but to my surprise, he still struck back fiercely. This creature was far stronger than I had imagined. While I was racking my brain for a counter, my eyes widened as I spotted a colossal sword stuck in the ground, the Sword of Ruin, Rebatten. I clenched it tightly. Rebatten had once nearly destroyed this world. Using it against a blooded Arlet should pose no problem. With a burst of flesh and blood, Arlet revealed his true form. What had stood before me was merely a shell composed of other beings. His true body was that of a massive, burly wild boar. Not even Rebatten could finish him. But I had no time to hesitate. Charging at me came Arlet, snorting fiercely. My gaze shifted to the Spear of Radiance, Bryanak, said to pierce all things, wielded by the god of light, Lulabath. With a thunderous thrust, it pierced straight through Arlet's body, blasting a gaping hole in his flesh. Not long after, the system congratulated me as the first human to defeat Arlet. Yet behind me, unseen, the hourglass of Kronos quietly activated. The system then announced that since Mammon, king of demons, had perished, the human challenger James, who held the warehouse key, was now the rightful owner of the Treasury of Greed. And since the gluttonous beast Arlet had been slain, I was awarded his gluttony authority. However, because I forcibly activated the hourglass of Kronos, all my skills would be erased, and my hard-earned experience from conquering the tower reset to 0. By the time I came back to my senses, I had already returned to the mythic tower, to the very moment when it first descended into the human world. Everyone stared at the system window in bewilderment. Just moments ago, they had all been working in their offices, but now they found themselves in this forsaken place. I was certain it was the hourglass of Kronos that had given me rebirth. A frail man clung nervously to my arm, trembling as he asked what this place was. Lifting my eyes, I recognized him. In my past life, he hadn't even left the beginner's village before being killed. Soon after, the system appeared again. Beginner's Village First Quest, Adaptation. Less than 5 minutes remain until the first monster wave. Everyone looked dumbfounded at the message, while I pondered gravely. In my past life, my stats had been pathetic. But before I returned, I had become the new master of the Demon King's warehouse. To confirm my suspicion, I activated the ability and opened the Treasury of Greed. Inside, it was filled with countless treasures: the fiery breath of the dragon Valares, Thor's hammer once wielded by the god of thunder, and secret martial arts passed only to the cult's supreme leader. Then came the system prompt: Beginner's Village First Quest, Adaptation begins. As in my past life, all challengers had to face the approaching wolf pack. Everyone froze in terror, their eyes locked on the beasts. I strode forward, warning them that if they didn't want to die, they had to fight bravely. Then I laid out the plan. I would handle the offense, while they held the defense at the rear. My words left Jason hand-stunned. Could I truly take on the entire wolf pack alone? Then, from the Demon King's treasury, I drew a martial arts manual, Shaolin's kick technique. This was a fundamental style emphasizing strikes. My thigh moved as though controlled by unseen hands, delivering a ruthless kick to the charging wolves. My legs moved like dragons and serpents, swift and precise, coordinated and fluid. Every strike shattered the wolves' rhythm. The spectators could hardly believe their eyes. None had ever imagined someone could defeat wolves barehanded. Even Jason Han, who looked formidable, admitted my strength silently, though he suspected I was hiding something. Soon, Jang Hanja also revealed his own strength, and with just the power of his fists, he could easily smash a wolf beast to death. About 2.5 minutes later, I finished the battle, gasping for breath. The fight just now made me realize something. Although I have many powerful versatile techniques, my current physical attributes are indeed terrible, so I can only use some low-level techniques. Just then, a pressing sensation rushed straight to my forehead, making me feel as if someone was spying on me. It was the system alerting me that the constellation the Bowed Crow was watching me. I followed the direction indicated by the system, and before my eyes appeared a familiar figure, the founder of the Greed's treasure vault, the Demon Clan's leader, Demon King Mammon. If he finds out that I am using items from the vault, Mammon will never let me go. But right now, hiding my power is impossible, because he is watching my every move. In this suffocating atmosphere, I counted the seconds until the system notification popped up. The constellation the Bowed Crow had discovered traces of time distortion around me. Thinking of the existence of Kronos' hourglass, he nodded. At that, my body trembled uncontrollably, so it really was exposed. However, Mammon only gave me a strange smile and vanished in an instant. This scene left me utterly confused. The Demon King already knew I was secretly using his vault, yet he did not punish me at all. Instead, he even smiled at me before leaving. Could it be that he had foreseen all of this long ago? If that's the case, then he must have tacitly allowed me to steal from a vault. Thinking of this, I suddenly recalled that before returning, I had obtained a root's gluttony authority. This was a good chance to test its effect. So I unleashed the gluttonous power toward the wolf pack. In an instant, countless strange tentacles sprouted from my right hand, resembling a root's own form. Moreover, these tentacles seemed capable of independent thought. Without my command, they began devouring the surrounding wolf corpses. Then came a system prompt. Because I had consumed a brown wolf, my strength attribute increased by 1 point and agility attribute by 2 points. This delighted me. If I could properly use the gluttony authority, I could quickly enhance my body's abilities in a short time. But then I thought of a troublesome issue. Since Demon King Mammon could sense me stealing from his vault even from afar, perhaps a root was also secretly observing me. A chime sounded as the constellation the Hungry Prince seemed about to say something. Everyone knows that an authority has a close connection to its divine owner. I thought perhaps I could please him by feeding him. With that in mind, I pushed the gluttony authority further, devouring every last corpse before me. A chime rang as the constellation the Hungry Prince, seeing the sudden feast, let out a cheer. My guess had been right. This way, a root would not blame me for using his power. After finishing this battle, I returned to the rear battlefield, where both sides' fights had nearly ended. The system announced that all participants in this wave would receive 50 personal points. The personal rankings were then calculated. First place, Muse at 220 points. Second place, Jang Hanja at 80 points. Third place, Lucia at 40 points. These personal points accumulate based on each player's performance in missions, and the more points earned, the greater the rewards for clearing missions in the beginner's village. Only then might one be chosen by a constellation. Thus, after returning in this life, my goal is naturally first place. But right now, my physical stats cannot match the other players, so I must obtain a handy weapon to make up for my limits. Just as I was about to enter the forest to search for a weapon, a graceful figure called my name from behind. The clear voice felt very familiar. If I remember correctly, she was the female war goddess known as the Whirlwind in my previous life, Lucia. Along with Jang Hanja I encountered earlier, Lucia was also renowned in the upper levels of the Tower of Myth. She came to invite me to discuss countermeasures, but I saw through her true intentions. She feared that if I left, the others could not withstand the next wave. After thinking for a moment, I turned and continued deeper into the forest, telling her I would return within 2.5 hours, since the next wave would arrive in 3. I also advised her to remind the others to gather wood or anything similar for defense. In my past life, we had only discussed strategies without reinforcing our defenses, and nearly half of us died in the second wave. Venturing deeper into the forest, I used the gluttony fist several more times to absorb a few brown wolves. Soon after, I found a sturdy wooden stick not far ahead. Opening Greed's treasure vault with my right hand, I selected a longsword called the Chosen One, once wielded by the dragon-slaying hero Sigmund to defeat Fafnir. But the treasures from the vault exist only as forms of power, without physical bodies. I thought maybe by embedding this power into the stick, it would become the true Chosen One sword. Yet in the blink of an eye, the stick turned to charcoal, it could not withstand the force and burned away. This meant that in the future, I must be careful when selecting an authority. If I chose one far beyond my body's limits, I might end up like that stick. With my current physical capacity, there were only a few treasures I could even use. For now, the best option was the authority Hunter's Nose, which could help me quickly find a suitable weapon. Following a strong scent of rust, I headed toward a location, but along the way, trouble appeared. A grey wolf blocked my path. The color of a wolf's fur signifies its rank. Black wolves are leaders among their kind, larger and faster. Each of its attacks targeted my vital spots, and my stone deer kick could not defeat it instantly as it did with the brown wolves. Instead, pain shot through my leg bones, even when I kicked its softest belly. After another heavy clash, my body was sent flying again and again. Suddenly, my pupils contracted. In that moment, behind the grey wolf, several more brown wolves appeared one after another. This just got tricky. There are too many of them. I have no chance of escaping. But that rusty smell I sensed has become extremely strong. I lowered my head and happened to see a rusty iron sword stuck in the ground. Facing the wolf beasts charging at me, I pulled the long sword from the ground and swung a few moves at them. With just one strike, I easily severed Harold's head. Even though the blade was already rusted, in this novice village it could be considered the top-tier weapon. However, when facing the grey wolf, ordinary techniques were useless. So I once again opened Greed's treasure vault and selected the Hamel family sword technique. This was the swordsmanship passed down only to the direct descendants of the renowned Hamel clan. At the instant I activated its full potential, I felt my entire body surge with an overwhelming killing intent. At this moment, the sword in my hand felt like an indestructible treasure blade. With a few swift slashes, I cut down the grey wolf. Several strikes landed, and without any resistance, the grey wolf instantly became a corpse. A system chime rang out, congratulating me for successfully killing the forest leader, the wild wolf that guarded the grave. My personal score increased by 500 points, and I was rewarded with defensive gear, grey wolf hide. Although personal scores are judged by players' performance in missions, in reality, there are 3 ways to raise your score. The first is to bravely slay enemies when defending the novice village. The second, like now, is to actively hunt monsters. The third is to kill other players. In my previous life, the third method was the one most players used. Once players left the novice village, the number of those who turned on each other skyrocketed, since it was the fastest and easiest way to earn points. After Boulder Fist devoured the grey wolf's corpse, my physical stats rose another level. Through the system's appraisal, the rusty iron sword turned out to be an Earth-grade weapon called the Forgotten Hero Sword. Its passive skill boosts damage against monsters by 10% and slows the healing speed of wounds it inflicts. The grey wolf hide was also an Earth-grade defensive armor. Its passive ability, Aura of Oppression, enhances the wearer's commanding presence, instilling fear in enemies. The Blessing of Seals increases movement speed by 5%. When I returned to the forest entrance, there were less than 3 minutes until the second wave. Although I had promised Lucia I would return on time, I could use this chance to identify truly useful people. Those without fighting spirit would only hold us back. So I hid in the bushes and observed the players' performance. The second wave was a much stronger herd of wild boars. Some players gave up as soon as they saw them and fled. But those who stayed and fought displayed combat skills better than I expected. Once the useless ones had mostly run away, I gripped the hero's sword and strode onto the battlefield. After the battle, the ground was piled with countless boar corpses. As expected, having a weapon made killing monsters much easier. Just then, a fat man's filthy hand clapped on my shoulder. The fatty walked up, trying to hire me as his bodyguard. Since he was the chairman of a listed company, he was confident I would agree without hesitation. And indeed, I accepted naturally. After all, I happened to need a meat shield. Saying that, I kick him straight into the herd of boars. Not long after, the system announced that all players who participated in this wave received 50 points each. Now ranking the personal scores, first place, Moss with 1,080 points, second place, Hanja with 180 points, third place, Lucia with 100 points. Later that night, during the bonfire feast, Lucia came over and asked me some questions. He seemed very interested in the hero's sword. After all, in my past life, he had been a renowned sword master. I told him that personal points could be used to purchase many items in the point shop, just like in a game. With my hint, Lucia quickly bought an iron longsword from the store. Soon it was the next morning. There was less than an hour left before the third wave. I instructed the players to head into the forest and gather 10 kinds of usable items for ranged attacks, which could greatly slow the enemy's advance. Then I waved my hand and opened Greed's vault, choosing the blue mana ring cultivation method. It belonged to the Blue Tower, one of the Empire's 7 great magic towers. The mana ring was the essential foundation for any mage to use magic. Although the blue mana ring was the weakest among the 7, completing its cultivation ensured survival in the novice village. It was like comprehending a martial arts manual, reciting the laws in mind, adjusting breath in sync, and only with the mana ring's approval could the nurtured magic be stored within the heart. After finishing, the system notified me that I had successfully cultivated a mana ring within my body. As the first player in the novice village to do so, I was rewarded with 1,000 points. The 3 sisters of the constellation gazed at me in shock, and the Virgin of the Heavens uttered admiration. The sudden notification surprised me. I hadn't expected that using magical power would increase the constellation's interest in me. However, compared to them, I wanted more to become a follower of a root or Mammon. From a hierarchy standpoint, these 2 constellations far surpassed the Virgin. A chime sounded, and the crow of submission cut off communication from the lesser constellations. It seemed I was now under the trial of Mammon and a root, who did not welcome interference from others at this time. While I pondered this, a burly figure appeared before me. His name was Raymond Lin. He came to invite me to join him in resisting the 3rd wave. This Raymond Lin I remembered well. After completing the 3rd wave resistance mission, my level had already risen to 3. Normally, it takes 5 waves to level up once, but now my personal score ranking showed a huge gap ahead. What intrigued me more was the Earth grade item in my hand, something I had stumbled upon on my way back. The system detected that it was connected to a forgotten hero, an item usually used to maintain heroes. Judging from its name, it should be part of a complete set belonging to the hero I held. So I found an open place and opened the Greedy Emperor's treasure vault, taking out the beginner's manual of the Blackstone blacksmiths. This was the secret book handed down by the dwarfs, known as the race with the soul of blacksmiths, teaching beginners the ways of forging. A bald middle-aged man stared at the item in my hand with glowing eyes. He told me that before coming here, he was a blacksmith by trade, so he could help me polish the rusty hero sword. After careful grinding, the hero sword became incomparably sharp, its lines much cleaner than before, and its passive skill had also changed. Like a gentle caress, its cutting efficiency increased by 20%, while Hero's Mark raised monster-killing damage by 15%. I then gave the bald man the grey wolf pelt and giant boar tusk. With a ding, the system popped up a message. The constellation soldier with the crown had shown interest in Ethan Lee. Hearing this, I gasped. The soldier with the crown was none other than Bellies, ranked 28 among the 72 demon kings under the 7 deadly sins. Appearing as a soldier riding a red warhorse, he looked like a battle maniac, but in truth, Bellies was an alchemist who could turn any metal into gold. His forging skills could even rival those of Hephaestus, one of the 12 Olympian gods. While Hephaestus focused on balance, Bellies prioritized destructive power, so even hostile gods favored the weapons he forged. Now Bellies had taken interest in the bald man. Seeing his puzzled face, I stepped forward and told him he had gained the admiration of a constellation. This so-called constellation was a supreme life-form in the universe, residing atop the mythic tower, beings beyond humanity. I reassured him not to worry and just remain as he was, because if he won a constellation's favor, he might later wield the omnipotent powers they granted. So I invited him to join my team, ensuring I'd never have to worry about equipment again. My next target was cultivating the Dantian, because inside the Greedy Emperor's vault there were countless martial techniques, impossible to use without one. The mana ring was born on the heart, while the Dantian was in the abdomen, making it far harder. Fortunately, the vault contained a manual for cultivating the Dantian. Soon, with the 3 talents method, I succeeded in opening it. Ding! The system notified me I was the first in Novice Village to unlock the Dantian. As a reward, I received 1,000 personal points. With half an hour left before the 4th resistance wave, the bald man had just finished forging. The wolf pelt became imperial-grade armor, the wolf cloak, while the boar tusk was forged into a brand new dagger. Overjoyed with the results, I realized it was no wonder Bellies favored him. His blacksmithing skills were extraordinary. Even in such crude conditions, he crafted peerless equipment. I told him he didn't need to join the next resistance wave. Instead, he could stay in camp to maintain our gear, and he'd still earn the final rewards. By the time I returned, the 4th wave had begun. Facing the raging brown wolf pack, I curved my hands together, palms facing, as a surge of magic burst forth. The air trembled with low magical ripples. Then I thrust my hands forward, sending powerful magical elements flying toward the wolves. Boom! Countless fireballs rained down mercilessly. I then drew on the blood wolf sword technique from a vault, created by the Wudang master, Master Zhao, after battling wolf packs. The wolf's eyes locked on the hero's sword, which now flashed like lightning, slicing through the air. The first move, Blood Wolf Claw, the second, Blood Wolf Fang. My figure moved swiftly among the wolves, my swordplay flowing like water, continuous and flawless, arcs cutting through the air. Behind me, David Lim stared blankly at the battlefield, feeling that I was no longer human. Not only did I wield unknown magical energy, but also martial sword arts with great mastery. Meanwhile, on the other battlefield, Lucia's fearless defense won the favor of the constellation Spider with the crown. This constellation was no small matter. Ranked first among the 72 demon kings, though not one of the 7 deadly sins, it commanded 66 demon legions, proof of its terrifying strength. With the 4th mission over, the system rewarded each player 100 points. My score now stood at a staggering 4,920. But my performance on the battlefield had greatly displeased Daniel Kang. He approached, declaring he wanted a duel, eager to test my power after using magic. I chuckled and told him he should first try beating me barehanded. That remark ignited Daniel's fury. He swung his right fist and charged at me. Calmly, I retrieved the Taikai fist technique from a vault. In an instant, fist and palm collided, the clash roaring like tearing air. I struck with both palms, unleashing thunderous force. Bang! Daniel's body was sent flying, unable to stand his ground. In pure physical strength, I was no match for him, but Taichi's brilliance lay in manipulating the surrounding forces. The harder he struck, the more he hurt himself. This duel finally made Daniel submit. I walked over, helped him up, and told him I could spar with him twice a day if he wished. Just then, the system popped up. The constellation Old Man riding a crocodile was watching Daniel Kang. If I remembered correctly, the old man on the crocodile was none other than Agars, ranked 2nd among the 72 demon kings. The next day, I went on alone. They arrived at the rocky mountain near the novice village. Since Lucy and Han Chiol had already gained the favor of the constellations, relying on the 2 of them to resist the 5th wave of the tide shouldn't be a problem. And I came to the rocky mountain intending to kill the leader here, the white-haired Monkey King. Relying on my hunter's nose, I quickly found the Monkey King's territory. Right in front of me was indeed a white-furred monster with eyes full of hostility. Its appearance reminded me of one of the constellations, the great sage equal to heaven. The moment we faced each other, the Monkey King lunged at me. I used my sword's body to block his overwhelming strike. At once, the tip of my sword trembled, and in an instant, the Monkey King's body was kicked away like a cannonball. The staff in his hands landed in mine. Then I took out a treasured skill from my greedy treasury, the dog-beating staff technique. It was said to be the Beggar clan's secret manual, created by disciples to drive away dangerous windhounds. Half-stance Zen, piercing shadows, spinning crazily, its mantra came forth. With a ding, the system congratulated me for successfully killing the white-haired Monkey King of the Rocky Mountain, rewarding me with 1,000 personal points and the mountain's keystone. The rock looked like a whetstone for polishing blades, and I entrusted it to the bald uncle. After using Devouring Boulder to swallow the Monkey King, my physical stats increased by a full 10 points. Then a mound ahead caught my attention. I pushed it aside and found a hidden entrance inside. Upon entering, the system notified me this was a hidden dungeon in the Rocky Mountain, named the Forgotten Heroes Training Grounds. This was unexpected. I remembered that in my past life, the first chapter of the novice tutorial didn't contain any dungeon at all. It seemed my luck was quite good. The rewards for clearing a dungeon for the first time were always generous. So I opened the greedy treasury and brought out the Owl's Eye, which brightened my vision in the pitch-black dungeon. When I reached the end of the cave, a finely crafted metallic slot appeared. After comparing it carefully, I inserted the hero's sword into the slot with a click. Immediately, a chime rang, and the system informed me that I had gained qualification to challenge the Forgotten Hero dungeon. The rules were that the slot suppressed mana usage, and except for the hero's sword inserted inside, no other weapon could be used. The next moment, a colossal ancient stone statue appeared before me. Without saying a word, it swung its fist at me. To my shock, the statue could even speak, saying it hadn't met a new challenger in ages. I was surprised. Were there other challengers before me? Before I could ask, the hero's sword in my hand was scarred with cracks by the statue's sword aura. He thought I was no different from the challengers before, unable to stir his fighting spirit. Yet he was puzzled, for while my reflexes were sharp, my movements were slow, as if a powerful soul inhabited a novice's body. I retorted that he wasn't wrong, but using sword aura skills in a novice dungeon was clearly unfair to challengers. At that, a smile appeared on the statue's face, impressed that I noticed he had used sword aura. Then he stopped talking and charged at me like lightning. Due to the gap in strength, I could only dodge repeatedly, which angered him. Unlike monsters, he wasn't mindless and wouldn't attack the same way over and over. His words reminded me, against monsters, one only needs to learn their attack patterns. But this statue clearly had its own will. If I kept dodging, he'd soon find my weakness and injure me. Since I couldn't evade or block head-on, the only option was to redirect his strikes. From the greedy treasury, I drew the Taiji sword technique, a Wudang-style foundational sword art that embodied the essence of Taiji, like Taiji fist. The method worked. Under the Taiji sword's redirection, all his sword aura attacks veered off course. The statue was stunned. Seizing the chance, I unleashed the Blood Wolf sword technique, a slash of crimson light that tore through his body with a thunderous boom. When the smoke cleared, he emerged slowly, telling me I had succeeded in making him drop his sword, thus passing the trial. A stone pillar behind him suddenly shone brightly, with a long sword embedded atop it, the reward for the trial. I grasped the hilt tightly, but the sensation was painful, like countless ants biting my body. The statue behind me reminded that this was the sword's process of recognizing its master. After what felt like ages, I finally earned the sword's acknowledgement. The system notified me that I had perfectly completed the hidden quest, the Forgotten Heroes Training Grounds. As the first to clear it, I was rewarded with 2,000 personal points and the true Forgotten Hero sword, the stone-cleaving blade Durandal. Meanwhile, back at the novice village, the contestants had almost completed their 6th tide defense. They were shocked that even without joining the fights, my personal score had nearly reached a terrifying 30,000 points. On my end, I discovered another surprise. The dungeon's reward wasn't only the true hero sword, but also a dark mana ring inscribed with the cultivation laws of the Black Tower, one of the 7 great magic towers. Before long, I succeeded in cultivating a second mana ring within me through the Black Tower's method. Even more delightful was the hero's sword Durandal. In my past life, it was famed, and many players tried all means to obtain it but failed. I hadn't expected it to be hidden in the novice village dungeon. Then the system prompted me that the novice village had already completed the 9th tide defense, and less than half an hour remained until the 10th. If I recalled correctly, during the 11th tide, a tremendously powerful monster would appear. At that moment in the novice village, due to severe injuries sustained in earlier defenses, the overall fighting strength had dropped greatly. Now everything depended on Lim Jung-pil's abilities to buy time until my return. Lucy could clearly feel that from the 7th wave onward, the monsters grew stronger. Even with the guidance of the constellations, it was hard to protect everyone. What's worse, even at the moment when everyone was drowning in despair, a flash of sword light descended onto the battlefield like a god, and instantly Lucia pulled up prompt windows for Han-Jie and Lim Jung-pil. The constellation, the spider with a crown, bowed its head to the demon god. The constellation, the old man on a crocodile, bowed its head to the demon god. The constellation, the donkey-headed thief, showed interest in Lim Jung-pil. Lim Jung-pil's face was full of excitement, almost as if he was about to cry. Others were also drawn by the commotion here, and the same thought came to their hearts, that the savior of the village had finally returned. Not long after, I completed the 10th round of the Monster Tide mission. Then I called over Lim Jung-pil to ask about the situation in the village. Aside from injuries, the players hadn't suffered much loss during the Monster Tide. This was mostly because a pair of twins had built wooden fences around the houses, and of course, because Lim Jung-pil actively drew the monster's attention during the fights. His transformation impressed me. In my past life, he was just a small follower hiding behind Han-Jie's shadow, borrowing power he didn't own. No wonder now he had gained the attention of Valefor, ranked 6th among the 72 demon kings. Under Lim Jung-pil's lead, I met the twins. At once, a memory came back. Since the 3rd wave, I remembered they had always been more active than anyone else, charging forward in battle and in rescues. I had always thought it was just one person, but it turned out they were twins. I praised them for their outstanding performance, and they immediately lit up with joy, then shouted with admiration, "Blood Wolf." That left me embarrassed. It was Lim Jung-pil who had secretly given me this nickname while I wasn't in the village. Though nicknames were necessary here, I wasn't comfortable with being called Blood Wolf. Besides, a nickname wasn't just a title. Every player's achievements were recorded under it, which directly shaped their growth path. That's why some people tried to forge false nicknames just to get the one they wanted, though almost none succeeded. Many even chose to hide their unwanted nicknames. Thinking it over, Blood Wolf wasn't that bad. It did sound pretty intimidating. But the reason I paid attention to the twins wasn't just their performance. They had also caught the attention of constellations, Halfas, ranked 38th, and Malfas, ranked 39th, who coincidentally were also twins. They possessed abilities in construction. Then we went into the woods to cut timber for the fences. With a swing of my hand, I gripped the hero's sword and struck hard against the tree trunk. Though I cut a large notch, it was still far from enough, considering this was the hero's sword Tyron, said to split boulders with ease. To fully unleash its power, I needed to raise my physical strength quickly. So I opened the greedy emperor's treasure vault and brought out the Taishan 18-step sword technique, a martial art passed down in the Huangpu clan famed for their mighty physiques. With its boost, I finished the lumberwork easily, and by the time we hauled the timber back to the village, it was already midnight. Then a situation broke out at the medical camp. Someone there had gained a constellation's attention. If I remembered correctly, his name was Lee Hanna. Despite the lack of medicine, he was able to heal the wounded, and now Marbas, ranked 5th among the 72 demon kings, had chosen him. Marbas had the ability to cause and cure illnesses, So Li Hana's healing must have come from him. I walked over and drew from the greedy Emperor's Volta healing power. Since you have Marbaz's ability, you're better suited for internal injuries. Leave the external wounds to me. Li Hana looked shocked, wondering how I knew about his connection with Marbaz, and also amazed that my healing seemed even stronger than his. I reassured him it was only temporary. Soon, no one would surpass him in healing, because Marbaz was a very powerful constellation. Not only was he ranked 5th, but he also bore the famed title of Grand Steward of Hell. After that, I went to the blacksmith uncle under the tree. Aside from my gear, the weapons of Lucia and Hanja were all crafted by him. Curious, he asked why I had come, since my sword clearly didn't need sharpening. I told him I wanted him to see something, and pulled out a stone, the reward for defeating the white-haired Monkey King of Rock Mountain. He immediately recognized its unusual nature. I asked him to use it to craft me armor, preferably before the next monster tide, since from my past life I knew the 11th wave would bring real boss monsters. He didn't disappoint. 10 minutes before the 11th wave began, he handed me a finely crafted C-rank armor, the Red Wolf armor. Its effects increased attack damage by 10%, and monsters lower in level than the wearer would be inflicted with fear. As expected of Berith, the Demon King comparable to Hephaestus, this armor even carried offensive power. A chime rang. The system announced the 11th wave was coming. The Red Wolf pack surged forward, smoke covering the land. The struggle between life and death began fiercely, but some players sighed in relief when they saw no new monsters, only ones they had defeated before. They thought this round would be easy. Lucia quickly urged everyone not to relax, setting up formation around the fences as planned. But the moment he finished, the system opened a new window. The leaders of this wave were Red Fang Canadan, Red Beak Parker, and Red Claw Joseph. The sudden change caught everyone off guard. Even though they had prepared following my words, no one expected 3 boss-class monsters at once. Just then, a figure darted out from the crowd. With the Red Wolf armor's effect, the weaker monsters were instantly struck with fear. I then unleashed the lightning power of the Hecat Mana Ring, and in an instant thunderbolts rained across the battlefield. Yet the enemies seemed so fragile, I found it strange. Was it because I had grown stronger after mastering the Hecat Mana Ring? A moment later, the system reminded me that Red Fang Connie had entered a berserk state. Then he lunged forward and unleashed a powerful skill. In my past life, Connie also used this skill, which caused most of the players in the camp to die in that battle. I gripped the Sword of Heroes tightly and charged forward. If I could turn around and use his lunging force, I could strike back and send him flying. But the result surprised me. The Sword of Heroes pierced straight into Connie's head, and the system chimed non-stop, congratulating me for defeating Red Fang Connie with only my own power. My personal points increased by 4,000 doubled, and I also obtained the dropped item, Connie's Fang. At this moment, the camp had already been divided into 3 battlefields, a plan decided just last night. In my past life's 11th Beast Tide, only Park appeared as a boss-level monster, but after being reborn, many variables emerged. So I reminded Lucia that multiple boss-level monsters could appear on the battlefield, and we would need to separate them and defeat them one by one. It seemed Lucia's plan was even better than I expected. After devouring Connie's corpse with my ability, I shifted my gaze to Park on the right battlefield, who was now facing Kang Han Cheol. I chose to first watch their fight. Park was an enormous boss monster whose single stomp could shatter the ground around him. Kang Han Cheol counterattacked violently, using his strength to forcibly clash with Park's shockwave skill. I seized the moment when Park exposed his abdomen and struck hard with Jinju Yun family fist, smashing into his belly. Kang Han Cheol instantly understood my intent, and his learning ability was strong. Plus, during several sparring sessions before, I had taught him the essence of the Yun family fist. The constellation archer, the old man riding a crocodile, lent his vibrating power to his contractor Kang Han Cheol. With fury blazing in his eyes, Kang Han Cheol's right fist blasted forward like a meteor. That punch seemed not like a single fist but a massive meteor falling from the sky. Pain flashed across Park's face, and within seconds, the system announced the defeat of the boss monster Park. At that moment, Kang Han Cheol could hardly believe the punch had come from himself. He seemed to have grasped the true essence of the martial art. I told him he was absolutely right, and later, even without a constellation's help, he could unleash such power. Meanwhile, on the front battlefield, Nuzha was also locked in a desperate battle. When I rushed over, I found Lucia performing even better than I expected, combining her own skills with her constellation's power. Even Lim Jung-pil was performing impressively, his seemingly chaotic escape routes allowing him to snatch equipment from monsters unnoticed. He must have become the contractor of the demon Valfor and gained the ability to steal. But Lucia had difficulty gaining an advantage against this sluggish boss, especially since Joseph's mastery of shield control had reached perfection. Though Lucia's swordsmanship was not weak, her footwork did not fully match her strength. I told Lucia to follow my steps in battle. Then I unlocked Kami's dual sword technique from the Southern Emperor's treasure vault. There were only 5 mercenary kings in this world, and Kami was one of them, his dual swordsmanship famous for its graceful footwork. In an instant, my figure reached Beast King Joseph, and even though his shield mastery was superb, my light, fluid footwork made it hard for him to keep up. Lucia followed my steps and learned quickly. 2 shadowy figures like phantoms drove Beast King Joseph nearly mad, the battlefield now completely out of his control. As his shield fell, 2 sword shadows pierced through his body, and the system announced that we had successfully withstood the 11th beast tide and completed the first prologue of the novice mission. Everyone trembled with excitement. The damn beast tide was finally over. But my face was solemn, because the trials ahead would be far more dangerous. Moments later, system windows popped up before everyone. Just as I expected, the second prologue of the novice mission began, called Movement, to move with the grasslands and reach the destination, with a test time of 168 hours. I explained to the players that the first chapter's prologue was to adapt to survival in this wild environment, while the second chapter meant we truly had to set out for the land of suffering. So we had to prepare mentally to leave here soon, and next was figuring out how to carry our equipment and food. There was a way. I had the twins prepare wood to build a carriage, and the rest was to find horses. There were only 2 so-called methods now. 1, control nearby monsters, but most were wiped out in the last beast tide. Then I opened the Treasury of Greed and summoned the skeleton of a sled beast, infusing it with necromancer magic representing Black Tower. By driving my mana, the sled beast would act according to my will. I told the players not to panic. They only looked fierce but were actually gentler than horses. Later that night, I fell into the nightmare of the second prologue I had experienced in my past life. At that moment, the system notified me that the constellation the Bowed Raven was watching closely. I woke up suddenly to find Mammon issuing a command, demanding that I hand over the Sword of Heroes. If I refused, he would revoke my right to use the Treasury of Greed. I laughed and told him, then take it back. The reason I could speak so firmly was because I had long realized that the powers I used were not truly the Treasury of Greed, but rather the treasury of the previous life's Mammon. After being reborn, I lost the physical treasury but still retained the right to use its powers. So this life's Mammon could not actually stop me. Otherwise, given his stingy nature, he would have already torn me apart. Still, I could not make him despise me, since I still wanted to become his contractor. After some thought, I told Mammon it wasn't that I didn't want to give him the sword, but that the Sword of Heroes was the strongest weapon I could wield. So I suggested that Mammon temporarily keep a replica of the Sword of Heroes. In fact, inside Mammon's Treasury of Greed. Most of the collection was replicas, because Mammon had a powerful ability to duplicate items. After seeing Mammon's slightly softened expression, I made another request. I hoped to use the real Treasury of Greed, the warehouse of falling riches. Mammon's face instantly darkened, so I quickly added that there was no need to be angry. I only needed the low-grade treasures at the entrance of the warehouse. That way, using the legendary Sword of Heroes, Durandal, to exchange with Mammon was not a loss for him. About 2.5 minutes later, Mammon agreed with a ding, and the system notified me that the contract with the constellation, the Bowed Raven, had begun to take effect. I gained partial usage rights to Mammon's Treasury of Greed. Then, with a flash of golden light, I entered the true Treasury of Greed. As expected, the low-grade treasures at the entrance were not equipment but mostly single-use consumable items. Soon, a small bottle containing a clear liquid caught my attention. The system notified me it was morning dew from the Elven forest, infused with traces of the World Tree's power. Seeing this, I gulped down the potion in the bottle. Moments later, I could feel my body's abilities growing stronger again. In the blink of an eye, it was the next day. By then, the twins had already built the carriage for transporting equipment and food. I went to the place where the sled beasts were confined, preparing to head toward the land of suffering for the second prologue. However, the sight before me startled me greatly. A young man in white clothes was observing the sled beast. In my memory, this person had already died in my previous life. It seemed my rebirth truly had altered the course of certain events. When I approached, he shared his thoughts with me. He found these sled beasts